And alongside us in the streets, it's Richard Bergen, Labour MP for Leeds East.
Today, we should be able to gather to celebrate the work and freedom of Julian Assange. We shouldn't be having to meet here to protest against his incarceration. We shouldn't be having to meet here today to think about the way he, Stella, and the family have been robbed of their family life. And why is Julian Assange to account? In our parliaments, we hear very Julian, but we also need to reflect upon why Julian, but we also need to reflect upon why they are doing it. They want to send a chilling message to every judge prison and certainly not being sent to the United States to face a sentence of 175 years in a super maximum security, of 175 years in a super maximum security prison. I'll finish on this. The words of Julian when he said, if wars can be started by lies, then peace can be started by telling the truth. We're gathered here today to tell the great truth that Julian Assange is not a criminal, as well as a father and a husband and a friend. Julian Assange is a journalist, a whistleblower and a hero, and should be free. Free Julian Assange!
Among the very many great tragedies that have attended the fact that Julian Assange has been in prison for so long is the fact that his voice isn't being heard in the world's press as the conflict in Gaza rages. Because we would know much more and we would know much better about what is happening there if he were free to report here. And it's my very great pleasure now to introduce to you one of the MPs who has spoken out most consistently for the freedom of Julian Assange, has spoken out most bravely on the question of defence for the Palestinians. Please welcome Zara Sultana.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Zara Sultana. I am the MP for Coventry South, and I bring solidarity to Julian Assange, Stella, and everyone who believes in the power of journalism. Revealing war crimes is not a crime, it is journalism. It is what we say when we talk about speaking truth to power. But we know Julian is being targeted for exposing US war crimes, the crimes of empire and abuses of state power, from torture in Guantanamo Bay to the killings of civilians in Iraq and Afghanistan, a region ravaged by what the US and the UK and its allies have done. The public, we all of us had a right to know about those appalling crimes, yet Julian has been locked in Belmarsh since 2019 and faces the rest of his life in a US prison for bringing that damning information to light. And this isn't just an attack on Julian, like so many others have said already. This is an attack on the very essence of journalism, on the free press, and what it means to hold the powerful to account. So everyone who cares about free speech should care about Julian, should care about this very important case, and should be calling for an end to this prosecution and the persecution of Julian, for the charges to be dropped and for Julian to be free. So thank you and solidarity, and let's keep fighting.
Thank you very much, Zara Sultana. And now there is nobody, simply nobody, who has done more for this campaign, who has campaigned relentlessly to free her husband from Belmarsh jail. Please give the warmest possible welcome to Stella Assange.
Wow. Thank you everyone for coming here today for Julian. He'll be very moved to know that so many people showed up today. Whatever happens today and tomorrow and this week, please keep on showing up. Be there for Julian and for us and for you until Julian is free. Free Julian Assange.
Julian Assange. Julian Assange. Julian Assange. Free 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 Julian Assange.
Thank you. Thank you. We have 2 big days ahead. We don't know what to expect. But you're here because the world is watching. They have to know they can't get away with this. Julian needs his freedom and we all need the truth. Thank you.
There really is, as there was at the beginning of the campaign, so it is still now. There is really only one decision: no extradition. 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 And the man who took over the editorship of WikiLeaks when Julian Assange was jailed, Kristen Harfinson, is here to speak to you now.
Thank you so much for showing up today at this extremely important hearing where the future of journalism and the freedom to express will be decided. Julian Assange has been denied justice for so long that it's about time that he receives some justice. There is a glimpse of hope. And when I look out at all of you who have shown up here to observe and point a finger at the justice system, do the right thing, continue to do so. This is a pivotal moment. This is the moment of truth, about the right to tell the truth. Free Julian Assange.
Thanks very much. It's a fantastic sight to see so many of you here. This is the biggest demonstration we've ever had outside one of these court hearings. It couldn't come at a better time. Thank you so much for being here today. Now, this next person who's going to speak to you has also campaigned long and hard for Julian Assange, the journalist, Chris Hedges.
Justice will come for Julian Assange, but it will not come from within those courts. It will come with you. It will come with us in these streets. They know how corrupt this process is. They understand fully the judicial pantomime that they have engaged in from the inception to crucify the most courageous, most important journalists of our generation, and they are hoping they will not be called out. They are hoping that we will not react. They were hoping that we will not speak out. It is the pressure that you exert on these mandarins of injustice that will free Julian. And I want to thank everyone for coming today, because it is this force in this street and streets throughout the world that will finally bring Julian home. Thank you.
Now, you may have seen that one of the strongest campaigns, one of the most effective campaigns, and one which has produced some of the most decisive results for Julian Assange, has been the campaign in Australia, where that campaign was so powerful that it got the entire Australian government to demand that the United States stops the persecution of Julian Assange. And one of the people that's been absolutely central to that campaign, has worked relentlessly in that campaign and in campaigns internationally, is Julian Assange's brother, Gabriel Shipton. Please give him a warm welcome.
Hi everyone, this is amazing. What an incredible turnout. I'd love to see everybody here tomorrow as well. This is really heartwarming, and yeah, it really gives us a lot, inspires us to keep going as Julian's family. As John just said, last week the entire Australian Parliament voted on a motion in the Australian Parliament that 2/3 of the parliamentarians voted in favour of, including the government, including all the cabinet ministers, defence ministers, and all of the crossbench. And that motion said very specifically that Julian is an award-winning Australian journalist, that Julian is being persecuted, is being held for exposing the misconduct of the US in its wars abroad, and that the UK and the US should bring this to an end immediately so that Julian can be returned home to Australia. This case, this treatment and this case, this persecution of Julian has made the UK and the US an embarrassment on the world stage. It is their shame. And they can bring it to an end simply by letting Julian go and re-establishing themselves as human rights advocates that can be powerful around the world. So, free Julian Assange.
Free Julian Assange! Free Julian
Thank you.
Assange! Free Julian Assange!
Well, this has been a fantastic rally, and you can see from the people who've turned up to defend Julian Assange, to join you early in the morning outside the Royal Courts of Justice, that it really does have enormous political support. And I think you can tell that from the cars and the traffic going past. I've never been involved in a campaign that just had so much support from passers-by, never mind about the people who've come out to demonstrate. And I think you should take heart from that, and that should encourage you to stay here, to continue to protest, to come back tomorrow. And tomorrow, at the end of the court hearings, we'll be having a demonstration from here down to Downing Street to make sure that whatever happens in that court, this campaign stays fighting. And I'd now like to welcome one of the people who has helped us most, who's done enormous amounts of work, who we've always been able to rely on to turn up and to articulate very clearly the case for a free press. Please welcome the MP for Tower Hamlets and Poplar, Afsama Begum.
If Julian Assange is extradited to the US, there will be far-reaching human rights implications and a chilling precedent will be set. It will have profound consequences for freedom and democracy all around the world. Potentially every newspaper and every outlet could be at risk in future if this prosecution succeeds. And this goes to the crux of the issue for so many. It's about whether we value and support press freedom or not. And for me, it's been long clear that the charges relating to Julian Assange's publishing activities must be dropped, and the UK authorities must reject any notion of his extradition to the US. There must be an end to the suffering and torture of a person for the simple act of telling the truth. Because it is Julian Assange's whistleblowing activities about illegal wars, mass murder, murder of civilians and corruption on a grand scale that have put him where he is today. And when it comes to those wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, it is clear that they were in breach of international law and resulted in large-scale death and destruction, including human rights abuses committed on a large scale by occupying troops. It's also clear that we were misled, and even now, the truth continues to be obscured and suppressed. In 2003, I was 13 years old, I was a teenager, and I marched against the Iraq war. I know how that war destroyed the lives of so many Iraqis and caused destruction to the region. But it also devastated my constituency and community in East London, and the consequences of it are still felt to this day. I think it's utterly obscene that whilst those that pursue Assange for publishing information about serious human rights violations, you've got those responsible for those crimes itself continuing to enjoy impunity. That's why I think today and Julian Assange's case is so important for us all. Because really it's about people and their power versus state power and imperialism. It's about truth versus deceit and cover-ups. And ultimately it is about seeking justice in an all too often unjust world. Solidarity.
Now, our next speaker is not only Julian Assange's father, but he is an absolutely first-rate campaigner. I spent last summer on tour with him with the film Ithaca, going around town after town, city after city in this country, showing that film, which was a brilliant piece of publicity about this case. It was later shown on ITV. And he's toured with that film, not just in this country, but in America, in Germany, in Australia. He has been relentless in the campaign to free his son. Please welcome John Shipton.
You ought to be up here with me, such a wonderful visage you've never seen in your life. Beautiful faces, all concerned with bringing justice to one man. 15 years approaching that Julian's been incarcerated in one form or another, without charge, by the way. 15 years. This scandal has engrossed the world. We take into consideration the Australian Parliament last week voted 84 members to 42 for the United States to drop the charges and bring Julian home. This is considerable courage exhibited by the Australian Parliament for three very important reasons. Resisting the extraterritorial application of the United States laws. 1. 2. In defence of freedom of speech and the capacity for each of us to speak to each other, founded on knowledge that we pass to each other, and consequently building within our communities and within our nation. Hope is the wrong word, actually. We together insist that the United Kingdom and its judges honour their own laws with the same fortitude, the same courage, the same uprightness as demonstrated by the Australian Parliament and the Australian people, all of whom stand 84% behind us. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, John. Our next speaker was an MP for the African National Congress in South Africa. He worked with Nelson Mandela. He's been a stalwart of the Palestine campaign, and he is standing as an MP for the British Parliament against Keir Starmer at the next election. Please welcome Andrew Feinstein.
Thank you very much. As you all know, my country, South Africa, recently took Israel to the International Court of Justice.
Thank you very much.
And the highest court in the world, led by an American judge, concluded that there is a plausible risk, that there is prima facie evidence, in other words, that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. This is something that we can all see every day with our own eyes on our screens. It's not something we needed the highest court in the world to tell us. But let us also remember what was included in South Africa's submission: the intentional targeting and killing of Palestinian journalists on the ground. Why are they doing that? Because they do not want us to know what they are doing on the ground to innocent Palestinians. Those journalists are informing the world of what is happening. This is exactly what Julian has spent his life doing. In the 23 years that I've been investigating and researching the murderous and corrupt global trade in weapons, the most effective, the most important truth teller on the global arms trade, on the warfare committed in our names with our tax pounds, has been Julian Assange. And while those who committed the war crimes have not only all gone free, but have all profiteered from their war crimes, it is Julian who speaks truth to power who is on trial. But it is not only Julian who is on trial. It is the British system of justice. It is the British government. It is the US government. It is our entire system of war making, of imperialism, and of deep-seated corruption. Forgive me for paraphrasing my former boss, Nelson Mandela, but the reality of our democracies, of our world, is that our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of Julian Assange.
Now, anybody who knows anything about a free press, anybody who knows anything about freedom of speech, has been part of the campaign to free Julian Assange. And Reporters Without Borders has done enormous amounts of work, often having to force themselves into the courts to be able to hear what's been happening in the hearings that have been held for Julian Assange. And because of that work, and because they're still here today doing that work, very proud to introduce to you Rebecca Vincent from Reporters Without Borders.
Hello, thank you so much, John, and thank you to everybody for still being here. Is that anybody? I'm just gonna hold it. Thank you so much, John, and thank you all to everybody here for still being here. It's been a really long 4 years. It's been an even longer 13 years. On one hand, I'm dismayed that it's still at this point. We would have hoped that the British judicial system would have delivered justice by now. We're hoping very much that that is still possible here. But of course, as we all know, this is a political case and it may in fact still require a political solution. So we're not letting the US government off the hook today, no matter what happens here in London. The responsibility still lies with the US Department of Justice. At any point, they could drop the charges, they could close this case, they could let Julian Assange free. This it never had to be a matter before the courts, and it does not have to play out in this inevitable way. So let's continue that call on the US to free Assange. Of course, we all know what is at stake here. For my organization, our mandate is press freedom, so we're engaged because of Julian Assange's contributions to journalism. The publication by WikiLeaks in 2010 of the leaked classified documents informed extensive public interest reporting around the world. We know that exposed war crimes and human rights violations, crimes which have never been prosecuted. Only the publisher is being pursued here. And if he is sent to the US, of course he is the first publisher that will be pursued in this way. This will set an alarming precedent that could be applied to any journalist, any media organization, anyone who works with stories based on leaked classified information, which is of course a normal journalistic process. So when we say that it's the future of journalism at stake, that is what we mean. This case has been going on for far too long, as we're hearing many politicians finally starting to concede now, but 13 long years. We will already never know what stories have not been told as the result of this endless legal persecution of Julian Assange. But if this continues, if he is extradited, if he is put on trial in the US, the chilling effect will be enormous. It will impact media around the world, and it will impact all of our right to know, because of course this is ultimately about the public's right to information. We have a right to stories in the public interest. I've been asked to hold this closer, sorry. One thing as well is to remind the world actually where Julian Assange is today. We, after a fight with the prison, similar to our fight for court access over the years at Reporters Without Borders, we were finally able to visit Julian in prison 4 times between August and January. A lot of people, especially in the US, have lost sight of where he even is, but he is in a high security prison in the UK, in London, some miles from where we are now. Surely, even if the US government cannot back down on the larger principles of this case, surely at some point it has to be conceded that enough is enough. The leaker, Chelsea Manning, served 7 years in prison. President Obama commuted her sentence, stated that it was disproportionate. So why would the publisher, under any pretext of legality here, face up to 175 years simply for publishing information received? It is absurd. But let's remember Julian today. We know his state of mental health. The last time I saw him, I was quite concerned about his state of physical health as well. He had broken a rib from coughing so much. These conditions are grim. He should not be in prison in the UK, in the US, in Australia, anywhere. So let's make that very clear. Anything that comes out of the court process or a political solution should involve no further time in prison for Julian Assange in any country. So my organization, Reporters Without Borders, we've been promised this time seats in court.
Thanks very much, Rebecca Vincent. As I said, there's no organisation virtually on the planet that cares about or campaigns about freedom of press and freedom of expression that doesn't support Julian Assange. So I'm now very glad to be able to welcome to the stage Sabrina Tucci from PEN International.
Good morning, everyone. PEN International, English PEN and PEN Norway are here today. PEN International, English PEN and PEN Norway. PEN International, English PEN and PEN Norway are here today at the Royal Court of Justice in solidarity with Julian Assange and with all fellow writers, journalists and publishers unjustly targeted for daring to reveal uncomfortable truths. Assange case strikes at the very heart of PEN's mission, the right to freedom of expression, reminding us of the vital importance of protecting the rights of writers to express themselves without fear of censorship or persecution. Assange's situation is not merely a legal matter. It's a political motivated case, a crucial battle for the soul of investigative journalism and democratic principles. His prosecution under US Espionage Act sends a chilling message to journalists and publishers worldwide, threatening the very foundation of a free and responsible press. PEN International and its centers have been steadfast in our support for Assange since his arrest in 2019, advocating tirelessly for his release and the protection of journalistic integrity. The UK Home Secretary's decision to approve Assange extradition in 2019 contradicts the nation's pledge to uphold global media freedom. His almost 5-year detention at Belmarsh prison, despite serious risks to his health, undermines this commitment. PEN International, English PEN and PEN Norway call on the UK authority to halt Assange extradition, recognizing the grave implication it holds for press freedom globally. We echo the call of the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture for a thorough review of Assange extradition order and urge both the US and UK authority to cease the relentless persecution. It's imperative that Assange is promptly released from Belmarsh prison and allowed to rejoin his family. Upon his release, his freedom of movement must be fully honored. The right to publish and the right to be informed are inseparable pillars of democracy. As a movement, PEN International and its centers strongly defend the unrestricted dissemination of leaked information by media organizations, while also emphasizing the need for responsible journalism to safeguard the safety of sources. In these difficult times, the battle for press freedom rages unabated. It is imperative that we uphold the principle of a free press and protect those who courageously pursue truth in the face of adversity. We call on the authorities to stop Assange extradition. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much, Sabrina. Now, our next speaker probably knows more about the legality of the case than anyone else. She's in the media. Please welcome the lawyer, Jennifer Robinson.
Thanks everyone for being here. This case is incredibly important for press freedom. Julian's case is setting a dangerous precedent for journalists all over the world. What this case is saying is that any journalist anywhere in the world could be prosecuted in the United States and extradited to face prosecution for publishing truthful information, for publishing information that shows us war crimes, human rights abuse around the world. This is the most important free speech, probably of our generation. And the precedent that it's setting is having a chilling effect on journalists all over the world. It is diminishing the moral authority of the UK, Australia, the United States to raise issues of press freedom with Russia, China, and countries like this. So it's important that we continue to make this point. This is about journalism, it is about the protection of free speech, and Julian Assange's case is not just about Julian, but about all journalists and editors in this country and around the world. So thank you for being here to support him. We appreciate you all. Thank you.
Well, as somebody is just heckling me, we're coming towards the end of the rally now, but somebody's just shouting at me down here, do mention John Pilger. And so, absolutely right that we should. John was not only one of the best journalists of his age, he was a relentless campaigner for Julian Assange, a good friend of mine, and it's entirely right that today we should remember his contribution to the campaign. So that brings us to the end of this part of the day's rally. Obviously Stella and Crystal and others are going to go into the court now. Please give them a huge round of applause so that they know that they carry with them our hopes that the judges will come to the right solution. And just in case the judges don't know what the right solution is, let's tell them. There's only one solution.
No extradition.
There's only one decision.
No extradition.
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 Okay, please do stay. There will be statements after the court is finished at lunchtime. There will be statements about what's been going on and reports to you during the day. There will be other speakers turning up to support the campaign. So please do stay around, come back tomorrow, stay with us for the march. We're going into court now. Please give them a huge round of applause. There's only one decision. 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 Okay, folks, stay strong, stay here, stay mobilized.
Can you stay off the road, please? Off the road. Sir, off the road. Assange! Now! Free Julian Assange! Now! Free Julian Assange! Julian Assange! Now!